Hello and welcome to another episode with Reality Renewed. Today we have former Judge Lucy Wieland, who I'm very excited to have on. She's also my mom, so she was forced to be on. She couldn't say no, because that wouldn't be a very supportive mom. But she was a judge for
22 years.
22 years, and before that you were an attorney for...
Correct. The Hennepin County Attorney's Office.
For how many years did you do that?
8.
8. So you have a lot of knowledge and insight.
Yes. About the judicial system. Yes.
Well, and you're very smart in general. But since we have you on here for that. So thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
I very, very much appreciate it. Obviously, as someone who went through a divorce, I was very lucky that I had you, who's a retired judge, and obviously Dad, who's an attorney. But a lot of people, when they're navigating divorce or even thinking about getting a divorce, I know people have come to me and just said, I just don't even know where to start. How is this even going to look? How does the courts look? I mean, it's daunting. It's really daunting.
Yes.
And so that's why I really wanted to bring you on. Later on, I'm going to have an attorney come on to sort of more talk about how it looks from an attorney perspective. Mm-hmm. But I would love, from your perspective as a former judge, just kind of the legal insights on, how family court looks and really how it works just from a very basic level.
Okay. Well, family court is a specialized court. It's a very specialized area of the law. There are statutes and cases that are only applicable to family court. And so it's a separate court in a way. The judges rotate through, although some of them like it and stay. There are also what we call magistrate judges that are there for their careers. So there's a lot of family court knowledge on the bench among the judges. And I think that's good because the attorneys know going in that everybody's sort of playing by the same rules. Everybody knows, what the law says. And in Minnesota, it's pretty simple. In Minnesota, pretty much everything is sort of 50-50. Property that is accumulated during the marriage, and that's a key issue, accumulated during the marriage is divided in half. There's a presumption that custody is 50-50. And I think that's something that maybe a lot of people don't realize, maybe going into it, because it didn't used to be that way. There used to be the notion that women, especially if the children were younger, got custody, and that's not necessarily the case anymore. So I think that just knowing some of these basic things is really important for somebody who's contemplating or in the middle of a divorce, which brings us to the topic of lawyers.
Right.
I think that if anybody is considering divorce, having a lawyer is important. Probably selecting the right lawyer. And I hesitate to say this in a way because how do you know who the best lawyer is? But from my perspective, especially I think with today's generation, like you, women are smart and they have usually got a pretty good network of friends. And it's an age where a lot of people are getting divorced or thinking about it. And so, honestly, I think just going to your friends and asking people for recommendations. Because a big firm lawyer, and I'm sure there's some out there, if they hear me, are not going to like me to hear me say this, but a big firm lawyer is going to charge more money.
Sure.
So smaller firm lawyers that specialize in family law are always the lawyers that I think I would recommend. And that's where you start.
Okay.
Assuming that at the start, at least, you just have questions. I just want to make one other thing clear here. Everything I'm going to say here today doesn't apply to cases where there's actual abuse going on.
Okay.
If a woman is in an abusive relationship, that's a whole nother set of rules. And that's then becomes about protection. And the court has a lot of different things that happen in an effort to protect a woman and her children.
Or if there's, I'm sure same goes if there's signs of abuse with the children.
Correct, absolutely. And so there, tread carefully, but just understand the rules are different.
Okay. Okay. So would you say, I know some people say, try going and finding a mediator first and see if you can go that route and, mediate it because it's a lot cheaper and, sometimes you can get it done.
I mean, every couple is different, obviously. And it entirely depends on what the relationship is. I mean, if a couple fundamentally has the kind of relationship where they both want the same thing, absolutely go to mediation. But you got to look at emotions, because what I see in divorce scenarios is there's usually a lot of emotion on one side, on both sides. And often that emotion is anger. And it may not be obvious. It may not be somebody screaming and yelling and, pounding on the table, but anger, resentment, the feeling they're being wronged, somebody's being wronged, the sort of the victim mentality. I mean, the problem with anger is it colors decision making. And so I just think that, yes, I mean, if it's two people who are essentially both agreeing that they want to get divorced, great.
Right.
Go to mediation. They're going to figure out the rules. I don't think that's usually the case.
No,
But
no.
If it is, great, go for it. Go to mediation.
Well, and I think the advantage with attorneys is it does take out the emotion because it's the third party.
Right.
So they're going to be dealing with attorney to attorney, and you kind of, obviously going through it is an extremely emotional process. It was very hard. Obviously, I couldn't have done it without you guys and without my support system. That is what the attorneys are for, is to make sure that they're, looking out for your best interests at the end of the day.
At the end of the day. And, I mean, honestly, what's at issue in divorce is two things: the kids and money. The most important thing is the children. And I know everybody says that the well-being of their children is the most important thing, but not everybody always acts that way. And I mean, that too. And it's very easy, especially when there's when there's enough anger or a sense of wanting revenge on either side, right? To not really think through the effect it's going to have on the children. And I know what you did, which I think is really a good idea, is, if you can afford it, especially, is this parenting consultant concept. Because, even something so simple as, how do you tell the children you're getting divorced, for example? If they're old enough to say, why are you doing this? What do you say? All the many questions that children can come up with. And then also, if you and the spouse or soon-to-be ex-spouse don't agree on something related to children, well, you're not going to run to court every time that's the case. That's expensive.
Right.
You're way better off having a parenting counselor who's going to just sit down with you and work that through.
And in court, if someone does go to court, they will sometimes recommend a parent consultant.
Correct. Oh, and they'll recommend mediation, almost always. No judge wants to try a family court case. I mean, they have a lot of cases. And, a basic family court case they don't want to try. So, and more importantly, a family lawyer's charged by the hour. And my favorite story, which actually is a recent one from a friend of yours, was the lawyer, and this is a good lawyer, telling her, I'd be happy to fight about that, but you don't have enough money to make it worthwhile. Mm-hmm. And that's what you want your lawyer to say.
There's not enough money in the pot for you to
right for this to even be worth having a fight over.
Yeah.
So it sounds kind of cold-blooded, but it's just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to pay a lawyer $100,000, which is not hard to get there.
Oh, no.
If you've got a lot of stuff you're fighting about, it's not usually the kids, it's about the money usually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you burn through $100,000, are you going to come out ahead at the end of the day?
Right.
I mean, and it's hard when you're caught up in the emotion. Like you say, a divorce is so emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And you're worried about your children, and you're worried about how you're going to pay your bills, and you're worried about getting, things being fair.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants fairness.
Right.
All this is going on, and it's hard to sort of step back.
Right. So I think, and to your point, we talked about this earlier, but, in the state of Minnesota, it's basically assumed that you will get, it's 50-50 custody.
Correct.
So in situations where, like, I have a couple friends who, well, I have probably two friends that don't have 50, they have way more than their ex. Is that normally, and no abuse was found, is that normally a situation where the dad just wanted less time?
Probably, or he has a job where he has to travel. If you've got somebody who travels for work and is gone a couple nights a week, well, it's not going to be joint custody.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes
Right.
couples make it up in other ways, but that's usually the situation.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. If you've got young kids, it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody wants to work full time and then take care of kids.
Right. Right.
I think this is, so I'm assuming, but I don't know. Every case has its own.
Right.
Maybe the kids have special needs. Maybe there's other issues at play.
Okay. So what would you say is best when you're going through it, for the emotional support aspect?
It's really important. If you can afford it, I would recommend a therapist, at least for a period of time, to help sort of understand your feelings and what they're about.
Does the state offer any kind of services like that? Any kind of therapy services while you're going through it, or anything with family court? I know you can get a PC through family court, but they are not really acting as a therapist. They're more kind of in the best interests of the kids.
Yeah. And, what we're talking about, I think what you're talking about here is, an individual's, the mom's emotional well-being.
Right.
And so a therapist is great. But otherwise, I mean, friends who've gotten divorced or are going through a divorce, family, siblings, just somebody that you can talk to.
Right.
And process your feelings and process what's happening. And because you can't do that, you're not going to want to do that with your lawyer.
No. No. That's a very expensive therapist.
Right. And so you're going to want somebody, though, to talk to about this. And so make your list. I mean, that's what I would say. Sit down and make your list of people.
Well, and I remember you gave me such good advice. You and Dad both did. And you said, do not talk about your divorced people. Do not go around talking about your divorced people. Talk about it to one or two friends that you trust, or Dad and I. Because you have to make your circle very tight.
Right.
Because you don't want everyone in town talking about what's going on, because it's none of their business.
Right.
And you really need to be focusing on the kids, their well-being, and you don't need, kids of kids, talking to your kids about what's going on, or hearsay or hearing from it. I just remember you said, keep your circle tight and don't talk about it. And I remember even like a year later running into someone and she's like, how are you? Like, no idea. I'm like, I'm good. I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, what's new? I'm like, oh, I got divorced. She's like, are you serious? You got what? Like, where have I been? Where and it was just like, no, I just felt not the need to talk about it. Like, we're just, we're co-parenting, we're figuring it out. And we just felt the need not to share it to the world. And I think that is really, really important, is to keep it close to your heart and only trust the people that you know aren't going to go around and gossip about it.
That's right. And, I think when we talk about emotional support comes from other people, even if you're not talking about getting divorced. I mean, the fact is there is life after divorce. And you can have friends and family and people that you, engage with and not talk about your divorce.
Right.
And I think that's so important. I mean, everybody has interests. Everybody has, even if it's, just taking walks with people and enjoying the out of doors. And it's sort of taking care of yourself emotionally apart from your divorce.
Right. Exactly.
Separate from it. Having friends, going to movies, going whatever it is you like to do. Getting together with girlfriends. I mean, all of the things that you do when you're married.
Right, exactly. It's not like your life has to die just because you got divorced.
Exactly.
What would you say? Like, I would be curious about sort of life after divorce, and what are you seeing as the biggest challenges, for women after divorce?
Well, one big challenge for a lot of women is financial. And I think this is where you've got to really talk to your lawyer realistically. If a woman is working, that's one thing. But that income continues. If it's a stay-at-home mom, then she has to figure out how she's going to make money. You usually have X amount of time, but there's an assumption you will work if you aren't. So some of it's this sort of thing. But mostly I think, again, it's a new reality. So this is a new life. And, you're obviously going to care the most about your children and how they're managing it. If you have a good relationship with your ex and can talk about how the kids are doing, that's ideal.
Right.
The school can be a resource.
Because a lot of the schools have, counselors.
They do.
So.
And, it also depends a lot on the age of the kids. I think it's harder on older kids than on younger ones. And so it's just keeping an eye on that. But then you can't forget yourself. You can't forget yourself in all of this because, a healthy, happy mom is the best thing that a house can have, right?
Right.
And so you have to, again, have your friends, your fun, your life. And that is a reality, post-divorce. Now, let's, though, be honest that not all post-divorces are amicable. And that's where you get into trouble. If you and the ex don't agree, especially as the kids get older, you don't agree on if they can get their ears pierced. You don't agree on if they can get a cell phone. You don't agree on what they're going to, how much freedom they have, or what, the consequences are if they don't do this or don't do that. It's things that if you were still married, you'd have to deal with together. But when you're divorced, are the rules the same for both houses? Are they different? And again, this is sort of potentially parenting consultant territory, although you have to pay for one.
Right.
But I think that's probably the trickiest thing is figuring out with your ex what the rules are vis-a-vis the kids.
Yeah.
But I find, in my experience, kids are incredibly adaptable. I feel like your kids...
Yeah, I think they're doing great.
They're doing great.
Yeah.
And it just takes both parents loving them. And they realize pretty quick that, the parents may not be living together, but they're still loved. And that's, the most important thing. Which, by the way, we didn't talk about this, although it's in my book, this is a given. You can never badmouth your ex in front of the kids. That undermines everything. There is not a single good that come out of doing that. Have your best friend, you badmouth him too.
Yeah, right. Right.
But
Exactly.
Not the kids. And you have to bite your tongue, and stay quiet if something comes up where...
Because the kids don't deserve to hear that. It's still their parent.
Still their parent. And they're going to love that parent, and then they're going to be conflicted about it. So that's a really, really important thing.
Yeah.
And again, I think as kids gets older, that's harder. but it's still really important.
Absolutely. After going through it myself and also having friends go through it, would you say you're better off, you're going to most likely get a better deal keeping it out of court? Like, having the lawyers do it.
And a mediator.
And mediator than going to court? Because I'm sure court
Yes.
has a lot of different...
Well, I mean, we used to say this generally in court. I mean, do you really want a judge who doesn't know you to make these decisions? That used to be sort of what the...
Because there's a certain amount for child support that's just...
Yeah, it's by statute. And so most of this stuff is not really worth fighting about. And so you are better off from a financial standpoint and just really from the two parents who are going to still have to get along working this out in mediation if you, by any chance you can. I'll never forget a very good friend of mine. I'd worked with him in the county attorney's office, and he ended up in family court for a period of time, and he really disliked it. But he said, I'm actually trying a case where they're arguing about the soap holder on the dock. So think how much money you're spending on a lawyer when you're in there arguing about silly things. And then, of course, judges don't have patience for that. They don't care.
No.
So it's, if you're talking about something really significant, whether a parent is mentally fit to be a parent or something like that, yes, okay, but how rare is that?
Right.
And, I guess the other thing I just have to say is that what you and I and other people might think is really bad, like my ex gets drunk. My ex uses drugs sometimes. My ex smokes pot. I mean, judges don't care about that. I hate to say it, but they don't, because it's like when people feel like I hired a private investigator and I found out A, B, C, and D. Well, there are a lot of people that do all these things and are perfectly good parents and don't get divorced, and it's never an issue. So you never really get ahead by trying to portray your ex as a horrible person, again, unless what you're really talking about is abuse. Abuse rings the bell every time. But most of the other stuff really doesn't. I mean, unless somebody's an alcoholic and is driving with the kids in the car or things like that.
Right.
It has to affect the children for it to be a meaningful issue.
Okay. Which, makes sense. I mean, I have a friend who tried to go down that road and hire a private investigator and do all of the things, and it didn't help the case. And I think, as much as you can try and keep it out of court, I remember with my attorney, they wanted to do $100,000 retainer just to start the court proceedings. And I think that was enough for, my former spouse and I to say, okay, well, let's just try and figure this out, because we do not want to go down the road of being in court. And, it's not good for the kids. I mean, at the end of the day, it needs to be about the kids and their well-being. Right. And being able to be around their mom or be around their dad and not have there be all this animosity. And I knew if we spent a year in court battling it out and being so mad and hating each other,
right,
it would only be detrimental to the kids.
Absolutely. And kids know. I mean, kids have ears like sponges.
Exactly.
I mean, they hear what's going on.
Exactly.
And, you're absolutely right. I always think, and I remember saying this once to somebody, right now you're furious at your wife and you want to make her look the worst person in the world. But what about 10 years from now? What do you think in 10 years when your child is 18 years old? What's the fallout from all of this?
Right.
How are they really going to feel about you or her? Are they going to be healthy? Are they going to be happy? I mean, so you have to think about the future too. You have to think about how these kids are going to see everything. What are they going to remember? And yes, so I think everybody wants what's best for their children. It's just that sometimes you got to take a step back again when you think about that, because the emotions can be very, very strong. And it's you can mix up what you're angry about versus what's best for your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. Well, and the whole point for me wanting to do this podcast was for people who are contemplating divorce or going through divorce or have been through divorce, like if they don't have those people, like, you know, creating this really group of women that can really empower each other and help each other and be a resource for each other. So I so appreciate you coming on, because obviously it's not every day that someone can talk to a judge and really get their insight on how it looks. So
Yes.
thank you so much.
Of course.
You're the
Happy
best.
to do it.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.